This is Thursday, September 10th. Tomorrow's 9/11. Given the given the desperation among the deep state, I just want to, and all the horrendous things happening across this country, I strongly recommend you stay very alert tomorrow. Be careful if you're going out. Be paying attention to what's around you. Sorry, I need to plug in my phone again. And I can't tell which way is the right way up. Be very careful when you go out tomorrow. Just stay alert. Just watch what's around you. Keep your eyes open. Be paying attention. I think of the day that I was in the grocery store and didn't realize that there was somebody standing behind me ready to accost is probably not the right word to accost me, but wanted to confront me. And I didn't even realize this person had walked up behind me. I was so focused on trying to find a certain kind of jam, and it wasn't available, and I couldn't find it. And so I wasn't paying attention. And that is not a safety factor at all. So don't just be so focused on what you're doing that you are not looking behind you, that you're not looking around you. We need to be far more careful. This was something Larry tried to teach me 3 years ago, and I've really been bad about it in recent months and realized this is something I have got to change how I do things. Now, if I stop and get gas, I'm looking to see who else is outside at the gas station. I'm watching to see if somebody's walking towards me. I do that at the gas station, but I need to be more focused on safety and awareness when I go into the grocery store, for example. That's one place that I, assume is going to be a safe place, but it's not an assumption we can make anymore. Now, as for Larry, I did see him yesterday. He had me bring him some food, and I offered to make some soup for them, but it wasn't something that they like, and so they said no. He said neither one of them would like it, so I don't know what's going on other than high fever. So he looked very haggard, and it was very disconcerting because he's chunked down since I saw him when he first came home, and that's not good. He did try to walk to the door without my having to come in, but he said he didn't have the energy, and so he said, please just come in. So yeah, Pam, focusing is really, with the days we're living in, the closer we get to the election, and the days after the election, depending on who wins, up until the inauguration, we really do need to be very, very careful. And, I don't know if you follow the dreams that Pastor Dana Coverstone from Kentucky has been having, but he saw a lot of power outages at the end of the year. He had a dream where he didn't see Christmas lights or anything like that. He saw Labor Day. He had another, or the night of Monday night, he had another dream where he was seeing the destruction of the Statue of Liberty. Now, one thing I will say about the Statue of Liberty is the man who created it was part of the Illuminati, and there is a discussion out there of libertas, which we translate as liberty, was a false god. There's something to do with that. And so, it just, it really disturbs me the way Satan copies everything that's good and tries to destroy it. from the rainbow being the promise of God that he would never destroy the earth by flooding the whole earth again. To there's so many things where God had a good purpose and Satan just turned it inside out. And this is another one of those situations where we think of the Statue of Liberty as embracing freedom for our country and being a light, and then you read about the opposite being true, and it's really disappointing. 9/11 was in 2001. I'm trying to think what year it was. I was in New York City and in Building 7. Not too many years before 9/11, a few years before 9/11. And there had been an artist, a fabric artist, he draped the Great Wall of China, and he's done some interesting things. Anyhow, there is some statue in France that he then made a gown. He dressed this statue in France as a groom, and then he made this elaborate gown for the size to fit the Statue of Liberty, and it was displayed in the lobby of Building 7. So when Building 7 went down, I was upset because I went, wow, I've been in there. It's not something that we have a tendency to go into. The Twin Towers are the ones that you would tend to go in and visit, to go up to the top. Building 7 was not one that was commonly visited. So 9/11 hit me hard that day because I'd been there. I'd been to the top. I'd been to the observation deck on the top of the Twin Towers, and I'd been in Building 7 as well. So, Jackie, I agree. He knows that God has forgiven him for his connection to the Clintons and what he did, and he has worked for 30, how many years are we now? In 2017, it was 28 years. So 19 was, so 31 years he's been working and fighting against them. And anyhow, I listened to City Prepper today. He made an interesting list of things, possible outcomes with the election. And he said if there's no clear winner, then we're certainly going to have major lockdown and chances of lots of looting and no power and water. He said if Biden wins the popular vote and the Electoral College, then we may see Trump protecting himself from prosecution and being more focused on that. Or if Biden wins by a narrow victory, he said the government might pull an overreach to restore power, and you might see Trump pardoning a whole bunch of people, stepping aside to let Pence come in and pardon him. These were interesting speculations, right? Or sparking a war, which he has tried not to do. He has, the first time in 39 years that we haven't been at war. We have a president who has not declared war. I think that's pretty incredible. And he said if Trump wins by both the popular vote and the Electoral College vote by a narrow margin, we might be looking at money to the Democrat states who have been so anti-American being halted, and states may retaliate by not sending tax money to the federal government. They might be withholding goods and services to the country that they do. For example, all the farms in California. We have to be aware of foreign agitators coming onto our soil and wreaking havoc in many ways, not just paying for and supporting the riots, but setting off explosives, the EMP issue is real. I know that much had been done. In fact, I have a son-in-law who'd been involved in looking at the EMP. He spent a lot of time in training. He worked for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission for a while, and he said, the EMP was, they had done enough that they thought it wasn't going to be a problem. But now I think there are issues that that could be a problem. And I've heard rumors that when they're talking about an asteroid coming very close to the Earth and possibly striking the Earth, there's a possibility that something could be done to the country and blamed on an asteroid when it's not. I don't know if you guys saw Dutch Since yesterday or last night. He showed an explosion near the Oroville Dam. I mean, it was at night and you could see the thing blow up. It was incredible what kind of explosion went off. And then today I was seeing something that looked very much, I think there was somebody taking pictures as he was going down the road in Oregon with the red sky, and you could see a massive explosion off to his right. So anyhow, the other thing we need to be aware of course, is the voter machines. If you go to vote and have a machine where you can mark your ballot and you get to see the result when you're ready to, be finished, and you could see what you've done, make sure you double check that your vote has been for the Republican. Because in 2016, we had folks that were part of our team in Pennsylvania. They voted, and they saw as they were ready to finish their ballot, it had flipped to Hillary. And so they called the election judge and were given a different machine, and that machine did the same thing. They did it 3 times, and it flipped their vote to Hillary every single time. And they insisted on a paper ballot, and the election judge said they had no paper ballots. Well, legally, they have to have paper ballots. Remember that, folks. If you are at a precinct that is voting by machine, they have to have a paper ballot. For the disabled, or in case the power goes out, it is required by federal law. They have to have paper ballots. So if they don't, first of all, you need to call the Board of Elections, and they need to bring some over. Or you can go to the Board of Elections and vote at the Board of Elections. So make sure you know where your Board of Elections office is. The other thing is poll watchers. Contact your Republican Party and volunteer to be at the least a poll watcher. Now, one of the things you do in poll watching is you sit outside with election information. You have to sit so many feet away from the door. When I was poll watching, the Democrat was breaking rules left and right. She was going out into the parking lot and aggressively talking to people and giving them a voter's guide and saying, this is how you should vote. I didn't get a chance to talk to anybody because they just stayed far away from me, and she escorted them to the door, which she wasn't allowed to do. So now the whole issue of Trump saying if you get a ballot in the mail, vote the ballot, send it in, and then go to the precinct and see if your vote has already been registered as having voted. Because they have not. If they have not, then they have lost it and you need to vote again. That is why they're doing it. So let's see, I heard something really interesting yesterday. And I'm trying to remember who said it. It might have been Mario Murillo, but it might not have been. I'm not sure. It was interesting having this person said, you know how what goes around comes around is not the way Scripture says it. But Scripture does say a curse that is not deserved goes back on the heads of the one cursing. And And God is going to bring vengeance on people who are doing wrong. And this person was pointing out that New York made wombs desolate with how aggressive they were in promoting abortion. And look how the city of New York has been made desolate. And this person was tying this together, that here the state was coming against humanity, coming against the children. And look at the repercussions in God's judgment of, you've seen the pictures of people driving down the street and everything being boarded up. Pretty horrific. Let's see. So the meme for today, I appreciated, Trump put out a tweet. And so I'm going to read his tweet to you that he put out this morning. Oh, dear. It's gone. No, here it is. Hang on. It's down at the bottom. Nope, that's not it. He was talking about, no, the ones I had before are gone. He did a tweet this morning about, do you ever see the Democrats talk? Do you ever see who talks about, he was saying, who talks about law and order? He talks about law and order a lot. He talks about the importance of law and order. The Democrats are trying to get rid of police. They're allowing total disorder in these Democrat mayors are allowing total disorder in their cities and so on. Yes, I agree, Gloria. It is illegal to solicit votes even on the grounds of the precinct. I agree. If somebody wants to come and talk to you and wants to pick up your brochures, they're allowed to do that. You are not to be handing them a voter guide as they're going and escorting them close to the door. Yes, that is electioneering and that is illegal. But I observed it I was poll watching. I did poll watching in a couple different locations 4 years ago, and I was in a heavily Hispanic. I was outside a heavily Hispanic precinct, and then I also was an election judge in a even more heavily Hispanic precinct, and as a judge, and I also did this as a poll watcher, when you're poll watching, you are looking for people coming in multiple times. So it really is important for you to be paying attention to facial features, because Larry said one of the tricks they would do is they'd put people on a bus and bus them from precinct to precinct to precinct, change their shirt, give them a different ID card, and, totally scamming the whole thing. And, or sometimes they would just go back to the bus and change shirt and come back in. So, I was looking for repeaters, and I'm pretty good at, having grown up in another country, I'm pretty good at distinguishing facial features and watching somebody's gait as they walk. And some people have a pretty distinctive walk. Not everybody does, but December 21st, there is an alignment of Jupiter and so on. Yep. Anyhow, I'm answering that too with James. Let's see. Let me say once again that I've made this big wreath. Let's see if you can see this a little better. It's, I think it's about 24 inches in diameter. And anybody who donates, and even if you donate $5 at a time, by the time you've got a $25 donation, I don't want to stop until we've got at least $1,000 raised for Larry. We've got about 600 right now in the kitty, that I've given to him already, and I've put everybody's name in a glass bowl, and we'll be drawing a name when we hit. Let's make sure we're up to at least $1,000 before we draw for the wreath. I thought I had my notebook here that I was doing. Yeah, it is here. Hang on. Didn't notice it because it was folded in half. So I'm working my way backwards to where we had done stuff. I'm still in Isaiah. Linda had asked me to go over some promises of God. Those are a little harder to find, other than to, as I'm reading through the Bible, I note them and very often will copy them down. Now I'm going to read a little bit out of Isaiah 22. I think this really applies to what's happening in our country, because when our country was founded, even when they first came to Virginia, they honored God when they landed. They thanked God for giving them safe passage. They claimed the country for the Lord. Of course, we know they did that in Massachusetts, but they even did it in Virginia, even though the people in Virginia were mostly wealthy people interested in finding gold and not willing to work very hard, which is one reason they didn't have the faith in God that the Massachusetts colony did. And so the ones in Virginia, more of them died the first year they were here than died in I think 80% died in Virginia versus 50% in Massachusetts. And what was the big difference? Willingness to work and faith in God to get them through. And when I think of how our country was founded on faith in the Lord and the desire to serve God with what they did here, and they wanted, especially in the North, they wanted freedom to worship. In the South, they were looking for gold. It was a matter of greed. But, they're honoring God when they first arrive. And I think we've experienced incredible amount of blessing from God. Isaiah 22 says, "Therefore I said," this is God, "turn away from me, let me weep bitterly. Do not try to console me over the destruction of my people." God is compassionate. And when I think of him weeping over Jerusalem, and I listen to things that, I've read the Harbinger, I've read the Shemitah. Anyhow, I've read all the books that Jonathan Cahn had written up until Harbinger 2. I have not gotten that one. But when I think, the thing he has said recently is Nebuchadnezzar came against Jerusalem in 605 BC, and he was rebuffed. And he said, just like 9/11 was God's initial judgment as a warning sign. 19 years later, in 586 BC, is when Jerusalem fell and the people were carried away. We are now at 19 years after 9/11. And so we can't be surprised at the things that we are seeing. And remember, very often when God sends his judgment, whether he's sending his blessing or his judgment, he uses people to carry out his will. He will and can intercede and do things supernaturally, but usually he uses people. So his judgment is carried out by people. Now, whether the fires in California are natural, there are plenty of reasons for them to be natural, whether it's asteroids falling from the sky, whether it is heat from the magnetism of the earth is heating up the iron core of our planet, and whether the heat is rising and causing problems, or whether it's the dew weapon. It certainly seems like it is. If you look at what Dutch Sense has said in the last couple of days, he's showing these what looks like the dew weapon, and the fact that it's been marked out with a black mark with black, but you can see the black line. They should have used a charcoal line, not a black line, and so you can still see that something has been removed that they don't want anybody noticing, which leaves Dutch sense to say that this is a dew weapon that's causing all these fires. Very possible. Isaiah 22:11. I'm going to read quite a bit from Isaiah 22 today. Verse 11 talks about prepping. It said, you built a reservoir between the two walls for the water of the old pool, but you did not look to the one who made it or have regard for the one who planned it long ago. So, what good is our preparing if we're not trusting in the Lord? Our preps can be taken away or destroyed, So God said, instead, the Lord Almighty called you to weep and to wail, to tear out your hair and put on sackcloth. But see, there's joy and revelry, slaughtering of cattle, killing of sheep, eating of meat, drinking of wine. Let's eat and drink, you say, for tomorrow we die. Instead of revelry, we're supposed to be seeking the Lord. And when I saw a woman, James, as well, who was arrested for setting fires as well. Boy, I tell you, what a ragged-looking person that was. And then 22:14, the Lord Almighty revealed this. Till your dying day, this sin will not be atoned for, says the Lord. We've got to really be careful that we are about to cross the line with God. We have a few months still for this country to be turned around, but we just have a few months for that to happen. And I don't hear many people calling for repentance. I see a few, but political messages aren't even allowed, even for poll watchers. So we do have to be careful about what you wear. But please contact your party and volunteer to be a poll watcher. And if they have any training they want to give you or directions, make sure you register or get involved soon enough that you can go through the training that they want you to have. It's interesting. In verse 18, he says, you're a disgrace. You're a disgrace. Verse 23, I'll drive him like a peg into a firm place. He'll be a seat of honor for the house of his father. All the glory of his family will hang on him. And verse 25, in that day, the peg driven into the first place will give way. It will be sheared off and fall, and the load hanging on it will be cut down. It's really important. Family honor was very important back in those days, and as it should be today to an extent that we honor our parents. God says that there is blessing if you do. And, this whole business of severing the peg on which your family's honor is hung is pretty incredible. Speaking of Paul Begley, Pam, yes, it's been pretty remarkable how many people are recognizing their need for salvation. And tonight at 10 Eastern, 9 Central, which will be 7 Pacific time, go to Paul Begley, B as in boy, EGLEY, Paul Begley, on YouTube, and Mike from Around the World is going to be on. He's an incredible scientist who knows an awful lot about what's happening astronomically, and he has talked about the waves of energy that are impacting the Earth, the fact that we are going through a period right now of very high radiation. So be careful today when you're outside. Well, I'm glad Trump knows about the flights coming in. Remember, Larry told us that Antifa is actually Al-Qaeda. So having been flown in, yeah, surprise, surprise, if they're Al-Qaeda, they don't belong here, but somebody's brought them in, and coming over from Syria, they would have to be flown in. Somebody's made the comment a few days ago, last week sometime when Larry was here, asking about Antifa and their members going to Syria to, he said it with Jason last week, about the Antifa people going to Syria to be trained. And he said, no, they were Al-Qaeda. So they came from Syria. They didn't go over there. Pam, was that recent? Because I've heard her do that before. Pelosi trying to, sounding like she's negotiating trade deals. Yeah, she's acting like she's her arrogance, God, may she come to Christ before it's too late. But at some point, she has crossed a line, and maybe that has already happened, and the Lord needs to deal with her, because God does not appreciate the level of arrogance she is displaying. So with that, folks, it's been half an hour. Thanks for being here. God bless you. I haven't heard a word from Larry today. I did run him pick up some soup for him yesterday, and took it over to him right after the show, the program yesterday. She had, not she, she was Pelosi. He had called just before the program yesterday and asked me to get some soup for him, and he was kind of impatient because of the timing, in the afternoon. So, anyhow, I haven't heard a word from him today, which surprises me and concerns me. And even if it's only 5 seconds, which is typical, 5 second, 10 second. Hey, can you bring me, you know where Stobie's is? Will you go get me a bowl of soup? Yeah, I'll do that. So, anyhow, pray for him and his wife, because it sounds pretty serious whatever's going on. Not fun to be sick and dealing with a high fever. So God bless you all. I'll tell you one thing, though. Rosie is an incredible watchdog, and she is a big dog, and I would not want to barge in there and mess with her unannounced and uninvited. So just letting y'all know. God bless you, and we'll talk tomorrow. Bye-bye.